On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered. These towns, think of those words. These towns are being invaded and conquered. What the hell? And nobody disputes me on that. And we will put the vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country as fast as we can.
Donald Trump is both out of gas and out of control, and his crowd knows it. At this point, they are so tired, they are so fed up, they are so bored with his shtick that the loudest sound at a Trump rally at this point isn't clapping, it isn't cheers. It is the sound of people footsteps as they leave, because Donald Trump has bored his crowd, and tonight he stunned them into silence with his inability to speak as he completely imploded on stage. A tired, lethargic, lazy Trump at absolutely out of it. And we are going to get into all of that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and we are so close to 50,000 subscribers. Just need your support. Now let's get into this unhinged Trump speech.
Gangs like MS-13, equally violent. They like using knives to cut people up because knives are much more painful than a bullet. They did it in Long Island, you remember, 2 young girls walking to school in the morning, beautiful 16-year-old girls, and they were grabbed by MS-13 and they were sliced into pieces and killed. And all I can say, it's really good that we have great law enforcement out there and that we were able to call ICE.
I wouldn't say that a good start to your closing message speech is to say that beautiful 16-year-old girls are getting cut up. Beautiful 16-year-old girls? I know there were more audio recordings coming out of Donald Trump talking about Jeffrey Epstein and vice versa, but oh my gosh, that's not what you definitely want to say. It's probably true of how Donald Trump feels, though. And that wasn't the only thing that got incredibly weird, because he continued to say strange stuff with his fear-mongering right here.
The United States is now an occupied country. Think of that. We're an occupied country. This is thousands of people all over our towns and cities, countryside, having military-grade weapons, sometimes higher than military-grade. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Where the hell do those weapons come from, right?
You can just hear how quiet it is there, how bored people are. They are fed up with Donald Trump's shtick. And really, at this point, it seems like he is. As well, he's wearing that black MAGA hat, and I think it's so that he can cover up his eyes so everyone can't see his face and how tired he is, because Donald Trump is worn out. He doesn't want to be out on the campaign trail anymore, especially because he knows he is losing this race, and it's why he continues to say increasingly more ridiculous stuff, like he did right here.
I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Can you imagine? That's when they ran it a little tougher. They weren't so politically correct in 1798. To target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil.
You could hear the moment as Trump finished that line, as he was kind of expecting some applause, and it never came again. These crowds are just fed up with Donald Trump, and we will continue to see that in a clip that we're going to check out in a little bit when Donald Trump really just can't speak. You can also see someone behind him falling asleep, and there are several people who are just putting the hands, the old chin just kind of tuckered out, and we're going to get into all that. But let's check out Donald Trump trying to rile up his crowd right here.
They said he's the greatest president in the history of our country. I said, does that include Lincoln, Washington? And yes, sir. But then I told the story, but then one of the guys got up and he's 37 years old. He said, he's the greatest president in my lifetime. I didn't like that. He was 37 years. I like the other one much better. The greatest ever.
Even the most devoted of his MAGA followers are not having it. They don't want to hear Donald Trump say he was a better president than Lincoln or Washington or whoever. Donald Trump wants to say his days are numbered and the number is about 1. At this point, we have left until we permanently put Donald Trump, sweep him into the dustbin, history, put him away. I think prison sounds like a pretty nice option place for him to reside after this election. But speaking of crime, Donald Trump was trying to fearmonger about those with this ridiculous line right here.
They watch these stores being robbed, guys walking out with refrigerators, 500 thugs going into a department store, cleaning it out, some of them with refrigerators on their back.
What cartoon world is he living in where dudes are just throwing refrigerators on their backs, just picking them up, tossing it over the shoulder and just walking? I guess Donald Trump is watching a lot of cartoons in his spare time. I'm sure he's like a little kid with like an iPad and he needs his engagement time. And he's just let's keep Donald not screwing things up for the campaign, and that's what they do. They just give him some cartoons or some Fox to watch something like that, and it's just that's his recreation time. But Donald Trump really not putting it all together clearly at this speech tonight, and that continued when he was unable to speak right here.
Has violated her oath, eradicated our sovereign border, and unleashed an army of gangs and criminal migrants. I mean, we have migrants pouring in here by the tens of thousands that are criminals from jails, from agriculture commissioner.
The words are not coming out anymore for Donald Trump. He's not putting sentences together. Like I said, he's not really even putting words sometimes together. And we always say, no matter what, when Donald Trump speaks, it is bound to backfire. And right there, of course, he couldn't get the words out. But when he could, didn't work out. Well, because listen to what he said.
Here, Bobby. I said, Bobby, you work on women's health, you work on health, you work on what we eat, you work on pesticides, you work on everything. The one thing you have to let me do, Bobby, I gotta work the liquid gold. You're not gonna touch that.
This has been consistently one of the worst talking points that Donald Trump could give on the campaign trail, that he's going to be putting RFK Jr., the guy who wants to ban vaccines, the guy who wants to ban abortion nationwide. That guy is going to be in charge of all of our health departments, all of our health agencies. Yeah, that's not a great talking point, and that's the why Tim Walz was calling it out right here.
And now this week he tells us he's going to put RFK Jr. in charge of women's health. Yeah, but he even made it a little clearer for you. Donald himself said, don't worry, he'll be your protector. Can't even open the door of a garbage truck, and let alone so.
These guys are not only out of control and unfit, but they're clearly just out of it. Like Tim Walz said, right there, Donald Trump can barely open a door. Why would we give him the keys to the Oval Office? Why would we allow him to run anything? He can't run himself. I don't think Donald Trump could run a quarter of a mile. I don't think Donald Trump could run. He is out of it at this point. He is out of control, and he's just tired. He wants to go rest. You don't want to do this. Donald, you don't want to continue to attack. And speaking of attack still white, President Obama was calling out Donald Trump for right here.
Now let's talk about health care. If you ask Donald Trump what he's going to do to make health care more affordable, he's got one answer, and that is repeal the Affordable Care Act. And he's not by himself. The other day, the Speaker of the House, the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said there would be, quote, no Obamacare if Trump wins. Now, do not boo. Vote. Now, neither of them can really explain why they want to end it, except for the fact that I did it. The problem they have is, guess what? The Affordable Care Act works. Almost 50 million people have gotten health care because of it. Another 50 million have the security of knowing insurance companies can't deny them coverage because of a pre-existing condition. The more people benefit, the more popular it has become. which is why a couple weeks ago, some of y'all saw this, Trump's running mate, Mr. Vance, do not boo, vote. Mr. Vance had the nerve to say Donald Trump, quote, salvaged the Affordable Care Act. What? What? Donald Trump spent his entire presidency trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, trying to tear it down, and he couldn't even do that right. And now, 8 years after he was elected, he was asked, well, if you did repeal it, what would you replace it with? And he looked, and he kind of fumbled around, and they said, well, I've got concepts of a plan for how to replace it. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Let's say your boss gives you an assignment, says, I need it by Friday. Friday rolls around. Your boss comes up to you, says, did you finish that project for me? And you say, well, actually, I haven't started, but I do have a concept of a plan. Or you could try it at home. Honey, did you do the dishes? You throw out the trash? I've been watching this football game, but I do have a concept of a plan to do the dishes. How's that going over? You're on the couch. If it would not work for you, why should it work for the President of the United States? It shouldn't.
This is what the Trump presidency would be about. It would be about empowering the most dangerous extremists to attack the most vital aspects of our government. And at the top of that list would be the ACA. Because, of course, Donald Trump's whole presidential term, if he were to win it, which he will not, would be about going after his enemies. And Barack Obama is still one of those enemies. It's the reason he wants to go after the Affordable Care Act, only to say he killed Obamacare. That's what he's focused on. And he's also focused on, of course, racist attacks all the time, which President Obama called him out for right here.
If you are black or Latino, and you feel like too often your community is overlooked by politicians except during election time, I get how you feel. But why would you think the answer is to vote for someone who has a long history of demeaning and disregarding your communities, whose family business was sued for not renting to folks that look like you, who cannot apparently understand how an NBA superstar could be both Greek and black, who suggests any Mexican crossing the border is a criminal and a rapist, who spreads ridiculous fantasies that Haitians are eating people's pets, who just this past week arranged for one of his supporters to tell jokes about black people eating watermelon and Puerto Rico being an island of garbage, right there on stage at Madison Square Garden. Do you think that's somebody who's going to look out for you?
We know Donald Trump. We know his attempts to divide. We know who he is at this point. Let's just move on. We are tired of him. So is MAGA clearly. So why can't we just move on? We have the opportunity. Let's do it. Let's turn out and vote. I voted today very proud to cast my ballot for VP Harris and Tim Walz. Let's make it happen. And that's what we're going to be talking about on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you're stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.